Hello, Schoharie County. It's HB Steadham, your Times Journal executive editor, and welcome to Get with the Times. I am here today at the Landis Arboretum with the executive director of the Arboretum, Fred Bruglia, and with one of the board of advisors, Gail Browning. Good morning, y'all.
Hey, good morning.
Hi.
Thanks for coming out
Oh
today.
my gosh, I'm so excited to be here. I'm coming out here specifically because this is an important year
It
for
is.
the Landis Arboretum.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. We're celebrating our 75th anniversary as a public garden, open year-round, dawn to dusk, 365 days a year, free of charge. Donations are always appreciated.
I didn't realize all that.
And the 25th anniversary of the Lape Trail, which is the native plant trail, and the 20th anniversary of the 5K forest run and walk. If you don't want to run, you can walk.
That's right.
And
You don't
that's
have
in
to run.
August 15th.
And we have a lot of walkers that do come out.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And we have a lot of runners that come out. We had almost 200 people last year at the 5K race. So
Wow, 200 people.
close to it. I think it
And
was
they
100,
start right up here.
180 maybe, I think the total was for
Yeah.
last year.
Yes.
And they start right out here. Yep.
And they run
And they
the
finish
trails.
up. They finish up here as well. Well, last year they actually finished down below,
Right.
but the year before we finished up here.
All right, so tell me a little bit about the Landis Arboretum, like 75 years ago. How did it become the Landis Arboretum?
So originally it was Oak Nose Farm. A founder, Fred Lape and George Landis. Fred Lape's family bought the property, and one of the things that they bought it was made them buy it was this giant oak tree. It was one of the oldest in New York State, and it stood until Hurricane Irene took it down. It was estimated to be between 400 and 500 years old. Like I said, one of the oldest white oak trees that we know of in New York that was documented. And they bought the property, and when they got aged out and got a little older, left it to Fred Lape, who was an English teacher, and later in life decided on a second career, let's start an arboretum. So he and George Landis started what became the Landis Arboretum, and started officially in 1951, but some of the plantings date back to the 40s, and they've been growing, ever since. We've been growing ever since, and we were originally 97 acres, and now we're over 300 acres. We had about 3 miles of hiking trails back in the day. We are over 10 miles of hiking trail now, and are in works to add about 2 more miles this year to the
That's
Arboretum.
amazing.
And along the trails, you also see the lilac collection, the rose collection. There's QR codes that actually you can scan on your phone and hear all about what is happening in the woods. And the Bluebird Trail is here as well, which we're on the, let's see.
We're a spur off of the Route 20 Bluebird Trail.
Yes.
Officially. We've got old growth forests here, which a lot of people, what's an old growth forest? Well, it's a forest that's original, that hasn't been cut or logged. So we preserve 2 pieces of old growth forest, and we're partnered up with the Old Growth Forest Network. So they recognize that these forests are maintained in perpetuity. And the mission of the Arboretum is to foster the appreciation of trees and other plants and their importance in our environment. So, we live that mission every day, and we accomplish it through educational programming and signage and informal learning.
So what are some of the educational programs that you hold here?
Yep. So I do a lot of the adult, like technical tree stuff. So anything with pruning and soils. I am going to do a class this year on foraging, highly requested class on foraging. I'm a forager as well.
Wow.
We don't allow foraging at the Arboretum, but we still teach it. And there's so much that you can get from the land in a very sustainable way.
I was going to add that April 25th is the Hawk Migration Watch, which George Steele, our educator, is going to be here all day from 10 to 4, I believe.
Yeah, I believe so.
And
Yeah.
we'll be identifying the hawks as they pass through the area. So that's one of the first kickoff. Well, I shouldn't say that. We go back to April 22nd. April 22nd, WAMC is going to be here doing a live broadcast and Fred will be here naturally talking about questions that people have, whether it's pruning, soils.
Yep. You bring your plant question, we provide the answer. And that's a spring off of that show that we talked about, that I do the radio show for whatever it was, 18, 19 years now. And so they do this thing on the road. And so they move around, but this is the first time that they've been here, and the first time that the garden show has been on the road.
Wow.
So we're doing that on Earth Day, April 22nd. It's a sold out show at this point.
Amazing.
But they did say call if you had any interest in coming, because there is a waiting list and people might not always, follow through with their ticket. So there
Sure.
could be a chance to get in.
Can you put me on the waiting list?
You got to
I
call.
know. I was
You
gonna
got to
say,
call.
I want to be
Yeah,
on the waiting list too.
yeah, you got to call WAMC because
Oh,
we
yeah.
don't do any of the booking.
That's true.
But if you go
That's
through
true.
WAMC.org, it'll have all the information for registration
site,
and how to get on that waiting
Yeah,
list.
Eventbrite is who they
Eventbrite.
go-
Yep.
yes.
Yeah, it's going through Eventbrite.
Yeah. Then we move into May, which is we're getting ready for right now the big plant sale,
Yep.
the spring plant sale.
That is a big deal
It
around
is a
here.
big
Which is actually the 75th anniversary of the plant sale, because Fred Lape started doing plant sales as a fundraiser year one and all the way
Wow.
through to his death. And so the plant sales, we've never missed a year.
And if the
2 a
feature-
year, spring and fall. The spring one's always the week after Mother's Day.
Right.
And then we
Okay.
have one in September as well.
The week after Labor Day.
Yep.
But
So-
the spring, I
yeah.
just wanted to add, the spring plant sale, the featured plant is the Betty Corning clematis plant.
So tell me about the Betty Corning clematis plant. Did I get it right?
Yes,
You did?
yes. Well,
Yep.
I can tell you about Betty Corning because I've lived in the area quite a while. She's known for being a supporter of the Arboretum as well as an avid gardener. And she discovered this plant and has cultivated it, and now we're bringing it back as the featured plant of the 75th anniversary. And it's this beautiful bluish, sort of a periwinkle blue.
Yeah,
isn't it?
bluish purple, I guess you'd say.
And it's a climbing plant that goes up. If you have a trellis or some type
Yes.
of, post in your yard or a column,
Yeah.
it'll take off, and the bluebirds and the hummingbirds,
Yeah, a lot of pollinators
butterflies,
love it.
pollinators
It's
love it.
Wow.
Yes.
yeah, and clematis can be picky sometimes, but this one's not. And sometimes they can be a bit aggressive and overtake. So there's two sides to
Right.
clematis. This one's a perfect blend of both. It's not overly aggressive, and it's not too hard to grow. It's like if you had a hard time growing them in the past, try the Betty Corning. It's one that we put it in the garden. We don't do anything with it. They've been there for years.
That's amazing. What are some other plants that you sell at the plant
So
sale?
we sell trees, shrubs, perennials. In the spring, we focus heavily on garden starts. So if you wanted to get your veggies, all different kinds of veggie starts for your gardens, we have tons of those as well. Annuals as well. We're growing in the greenhouse right now a ton of geraniums, a bunch of different colors. That'll be all available through the sale. And I do that with a bunch of volunteer power. So it's, in fact, volunteer power runs so much of Landis. So a lot of things that grow really well in our zone that folks just aren't really aware that you can actually plant or even aware that they exist. So we focus on a lot of those unusual things. And then we also carry a whole bunch of the natives as well. So a lot of native stuff. And we grow some native plants as well. So, and they'll all be available at the sale. It's May 16th, May 17th this year. If you are a member, you can come out on a Friday night and you can pre-shop and get 10% off the plants, complimentary hors d'oeuvres, complimentary beverages.
Well, so then what does it take to become a member?
$35 basic individual membership. Family is $50, and we do have business memberships, and we have lifetime memberships available and stuff like that.
And there's a special going on for $75 for the 75th anniversary for a couple of years.
That's right.
Membership.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
That's
So we're running
great.
some
so you
specials
wanna
this year. A
come
lot of
Friday
specials
night,
this year.
Join, and then get the pick of the pots, we call it.
Pick
Yep.
of the pots.
That's right.
I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that.
And we've been doing that for as long as I remember. I've been here 28 years, and it's been going on long before I started at Landis Arboretum. And then that's just the spring slate, and we didn't even mention all the programs. Then we hit the summer, like you had mentioned the Hawk Watch with George Steele. He does a whole bunch of family programs across the board. So owl prowls that are in the fall, and that's usually around the Halloween time. He does all kinds of pond critters, and great for kids of all ages. Great family programs, really affordable prices. A lot of the programs are even free.
So as a writer, I gotta say, your names for things are just delighting me. An owl prowl,
Yep.
where you go looking for owls.
You do, and you hear them, and you often can see them, and a lot of times you see them silhouetted. So they'll look at trees with sort of a sky backdrop, and you'll see the owl silhouettes.
I love
So you spot them, and then they'll
that.
call them in, and sometimes they'll even come closer. You never know what you're going to see there. They do snowshoes in the wintertime, so it's year-round calendar events. Snowshoe programs where they look for animal tracks, signs of winter, sometimes winter plant identification. I teach winter identification on trees sometimes. I do summer ID as well. So all kinds of plant identification and all kinds of natural world, programs for families, adults, people that are professionals, and real amateurs, and even kids. The
Very
whole gamut.
cool.
Another program that is free to anyone is the Albany area astronomers come out here, and the skies out here are like a planetarium.
It's super dark. Yep.
And they'll lend you. They're very, very, family friendly. They'll lend you their huge scopes that you can see, and they'll help you identify the constellations and what galaxy is up there, and if you might see some uh, comets going through the sky or asteroids.
Yep. Yeah, they're really cool. They're as enthusiastic about stars as I am about trees, and they know it so well. I mean, one time my wife and I came to one, and they were like looking through one of these big scopes, and they're like, "Okay, ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1." We see a satellite go right across the lens.
Wow.
So they spend a lot of time looking up, and those are free programs too. They're not. There's no charge for them. Like I said, donations welcome, but there's no charge. You don't even have to be a member. Memberships help keep us growing, so we love it if people join, but you don't have to be.
Now, we talked about April, May, June, and into July is our first community day. We've never had one. It's a community day where there are all kinds of things going on, especially for kids. We're going to do, there's someone that can bring acorns. Have you ever heard of the acorn people or acorn little animals?
No, tell me about that.
That you can make out of, if you go online, you'll see it. And
there are little caricatures of sorts.
Oh my
characters you
goodness.
make
So-
out of acorns.
Yep. So some artists that are going to try to work with kids to sort of show them how to do that. They'll take your little acorn person home.
And they'll be putting together little plants, and seeds, potting seeds and things like that, so they can take those home, and
Yep.
that's all free. So the community day
Very
is free.
cool.
A lot going on that day.
Yep.
So
We're still planning the exact agenda, but it's starting to fill out pretty nicely. So we're excited about that.
12 to 4. I think we'll be busy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we'll be busy on that for sure. Yeah.
So, and then that's in the end of July, and then we go into August to the 5K run, and that'll be a big one.
And it's the
Walk and run.
20th anniversary of the
Yes.
5K.
It is. Yeah, a special shirt's being made right now. I've seen a preliminary draft. I don't want to give it away, but preliminary draft indicates there's some indicator of the 20th anniversary on there in trees.
Very cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of very talented volunteers that help out with graphic design, with volunteering for everything. But,
Yeah. Yeah, we have. I mean, volunteers really are the lifeblood of the organization. I mean, I have a relatively small staff, but with the volunteers, I have a pretty big staff. So, and it's people like Gail have been volunteering here for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And then we also get a lot of new ones that have been really working out really well with us too. In fact, the Bluebird Trail was adopted by a new volunteer recently, and he's been a gold mine. He wasn't a birder when he started. He's a birder now.
Amazing.
He keeps the statistics of when they come, when they're fledging. The little ones are fledging.
Yep, does workshops on the birds. There was a bluebird lottery this year that we held. We didn't draw that yet.
And the September plant sale is the weekend after Labor Day. Then we're talking about doing an open mic night, whether it would be here or in a poetry slam. That hasn't been set yet, but watch for that.
Yeah, we are planning to do that. And again, our founding father, Fred Lape, he started, he was a Renaissance man. So he did not only plants, he was a musician, he was a writer, he was a poet, he did artwork. And we've maintained that sort of in the lifeblood of the Landis.
We do have a beautiful artist collection from
Ann Jaster.
Ann Jaster has passed away, but their family donated her artwork to us. So that's all in the meeting house. The meeting house, as you see it right now, is totally renovated from when I first started volunteering here in '93. It was a barn. You could see through the slats.
Oh.
There were
no windows seeing the $1 million view.
there were birds, there were critters, there were all kinds of
Yep.
things in
Some
there.
people call it the bee's nest or the bird's nest, depending on your experience. But it's been like Gail said, it's been renovated to a state-of-the-art education center.
Beautiful.
Wi-Fi,
We've had music in there.
bathrooms, green room,
Right.
a food prep area. When you see the view from inside, I mean, it's unbelievable. It's a natural place that induces learning, and
Yeah.
that's also where the WAMC show will be. And like I said before, that's where most of our programming occurs, except for when things are outside.
Okay, so I'm just going to tell you that I clearly have deprived myself of the richness of my life that I haven't been here. There's so many things that.
Yeah, once someone's sort of shows up here, they almost always come back.
Well, for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot to see, and even if you had 2 or 3 hours, there's a great a lot to see.
Do writing workshops.
You do
here.
writing
We
workshops
do.
here
We
too?
do.
Yep.
What I meant was we get some grants periodically to host a writer to come in, and welcome to anybody that's yes, here you go.
Yep.
I know. I hope you like me because you're stuck with me now. This is amazing.
We're glad.
Yeah.
So this is the 25th anniversary of the Lape Trail. Can you
Yep.
tell me a little bit more about the Lape Trail?
Yep. So that was started by Ed Miller, who was a GE engineer, and when he retired from GE, he decided to go into career number 2, which was horticulture and botany. And he proposed this idea to Landis Arboretum's horticulture committee over 25 years ago, and we liked the idea. It grew to become a really great feature of the Arboretum. It houses virtually every native plant that's hardy in our zone, all on a 1-mile loop trail.
Wow.
And they're all labeled. And Gail had mentioned the QR code, so you can use your smartphones with your
That's
QR
so
scanners.
Smart.
And I'm a musician as well, so when Ed and I sat down, he had written scripts for these QR codes, and then after like the second or third script, I said, we could record these instead of like you actually just scanning it and going to a site that you got to read.
Yeah.
You can record your voice, Ed, and he had a great voice. So we stopped doing the written piece and went to verbal, and now because of that, when you scan it, you get a tour from Ed Miller himself. He's in perpetuity memorialized on the trail now.
That is
and all
so
the different
cool.
stations, it's Ed's voice. And we have trails that are easy, everything from the paved loop trail, which is the easiest, to the native plant trail, which is also pretty easy, and the Fred Lape trail through the conifers and a lot of the plants that Fred Lape planted, which is on that side of the road. And then things get a little bit harder, moderately difficult when you start doing the ancient forest trail and you start dropping elevation. And then the waterfall trail and the ancient forest trail are probably the harder hiking trails. But if you're a hiker, they're not hard. They're
Walker.
So trails for all walks
part
of life,
part
unintended.
Of the 5K goes right through
Oh yeah.
the Lape Trail. So that's a good one, and it comes over and around here in the back way and loops around.
Wow.
Comes out down by the pond usually.
Yep. Yeah, I like to say it's the most attractive 5K around because it really does sample the Arboretum. It goes from the choice Fred Lape plantings, that a lot of them mature, a lot of them planted back in the 50s, and it goes through the Pioneer Trail, which is mostly pioneer species, not pioneers, as in wagon trains.
Sure.
But what happens when a field starts to regrow?
Oh.
Pioneer species come in first, and then they seed the way for other plants to be able to grow. So it's succession. So we show those, and then you run/walk through the old growth forest, and then it ends sort of down at the native plant trail. So you sample, if you have time to stop and smell the flowers, if you're running or walking, you may see quite a bit along that trail, but it samples a lot of the Arboretum.
Wow, that's
and
really
it goes
cool.
across those views and vistas that you
Oh,
see
for sure.
on the way coming up there.
I do want to touch on the paved trail.
Yep.
Did I say that right? Paved route?
Yeah, the paved loop trail.
Paved loop trail. Tell me a little, because that's been 1 year, right?
Yeah, we literally put it in this fall, and the goal for that is basically to open it up to people of all walks of life. So no matter how easy or how difficult you want to get it, that trail is about as easy as it gets. It has a drop-off point for folks that need to get dropped off. If you have a wheelchair, we have a drop-off parking lot. You can connect right to the trail itself. So to me, the site has a lot of topography, our site, so a lot of ups and downs. but the paved loop trail is in a flat field, and it opens up the door. I like to say it opens up the arboretum to folks that maybe couldn't get around quite as good.
Right, a
And
little
we're
less
really excited
mobile.
about having that
Sure.
to get everybody out to experience Landis Arboretum. Everybody should be able to experience the site, and that takes you right over to the meditation garden. So I'd be able to see a lot of the plants, and plans in the future. Next year, we're planning to do more sensory plants in there too. So if you have limited sight or that type of thing, you can still hear the rustling. Plants that have a certain touch, fuzzy leaves.
Oh wow, yeah.
And we're even thinking tags that are written in not only scientific form, English, and also Braille.
That's brilliant.
So yeah, just trying to open up, get everybody. We feel everybody should be able to enjoy Landis Arboretum, and that paved loop trail is helping to pave the way.
And then just to wrap up the year for the season, we always celebrate the volunteers because we bring them all in the first weekend in October when it's so beautiful and the trees are at their glorious, spectacular color.
Yeah, one of the best places around to see the fall, the fall colors.
We recognize all the volunteers, and we have the Volunteer of the Year and the Great Oak Award, etc. So it's just a fun event, and that wraps up the year.
It's a year-round calendar events, landisarboretum.org, our one-stop shop for everything going on at Landis. We're also on Facebook as well. So.
Wonderful. I have one more question. So if Fred Lape was kind of like your founding father, why is it named the Landis Arboretum?
So good question. So it started with Fred Lape's farm, and he was hired by a guy that he had worked with, George Landis, to do some horticultural plantings on George Landis's property in Schenectady on Union Street.
Okay.
And his idea was he wanted to start a small arboretum. They only had about an acre. After a year or two of planting, they ran out of room, and they said, Fred Lape came up with the idea. I said, hey, why don't we make the whole 97-acre parcel an arboretum? And they quit their day jobs and started Landis Arboretum. And then so earlier on in the founding years, George Landis passed away, and whatever money he had endowed to Fred to keep the dream alive.
Oh, wow.
And in memory of that, he named a place the George Landis Arboretum. So that's why it's the George Landis Arboretum, not the Fred Lape Arboretum. He also was a very modest guy, and he also said he didn't really want a lot of things named after him. But that being said, we still have the Fred Lape Trail, which is through the plantings that he and George planted in the early years. And there's a stone up there with a plaque that's the Fred Lape stone. So he's memorialized, through life and of course death, and all the plantings, that are still growing. Are definitely symbolic of that. And we've been putting a lot of care into the mature plants, and over the past few years through grants, put a lot of work into the mature plants, and we really want to keep them around for the next generation as well.
Wonderful. I just thank you so much for having me out here today. You gave me such an education and then such joy just being able to be here in this beautiful place. And I can clearly see now that Landis Arboretum, I don't know if you guys know what I say all the time when I end these videos, but Landis Arboretum is part of what makes Schoharie County a great place to live.
Indeed. I'm originally from Schoharie County too.
Are you really?
Yeah, traveled around the country, lived in different states, but came back to my roots. So think global, act local.
I agree. I am.
Here I am.
That's wonderful.